back at you with another one. In 1973, in the town of Portland, Oregon, during the time when the city was going through a gas shortage, with signs of the city's frustration posted on corners for full display, would be the birthplace of Mighty Mouse, aka Damon Stoudamire. Damon would be a standout point guard in high school and would choose to attend the University of Arizona, coached by the legendary coach Luke Olson, who ran a program who at the time was the mecca for great point guards, with Damon arguably being one of the best that the coach has ever had. Damon would choose to stay all 4 years in college, progressing each season. His freshman year, he would average only 7.2 points per game, but by the time his senior season came around, he was dropping 22.7 a game to go along with 7 assists, winning several awards in college, including being 3-time All-Pac-10 Conference Award winner. Averaged 15 points for a career. And these are the numbers of him progressing gradually as a collegiate player. After leaving Arizona, he would become the 7th pick of the 1995 NBA draft and the very first pick of the Toronto Raptors. At this time, the NBA was expanding and they added 2 teams in Canada, the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies. The Raptors' very first season, there were little to no expectations other than to see if the NBA could make it in Canada and to see if the Toronto Raptors could get a return on their investment. Meaning, was Damon Stoudamire a building block for the future or someone who couldn't make it in the NBA because he was simply too small? But when you got the nickname Mighty Mouse, you got to earn that. Damon would definitely prove he belonged, averaging 19 points and 9 assists and becoming Rookie of the Year. And don't forget, he did this with an expansion team. There was NBA talent on that team, but they were mostly just journeymen. These are highlights from the Rising Stars channels where during the NBA All-Star Weekend, the first and second year players play against each other. Damon will win MVP of this game, and this is in the 90s when basketball was played and taken way more seriously than it is today. The 96 Bulls are the greatest team of all time with a regular season record of 72-10. I know the Warriors had a season where they went 73-9, but they didn't win the chip, so that don't count. One of the losses that the Bulls suffered that season was at the hands of Damon Stoudamire and the Toronto Raptors. Now, obviously, the Bulls were the better team, but on this particular night, the Mighty Mouse was stronger than the Bulls. Stoudamire would find teammates like Zon Tabak, Oliver Miller, and Doug Christie, not only having 31 points, but to go along with 11 assists, meanwhile killing his fellow Arizona Wildcat Steve Kerr. This just showed you the ability that Damon possessed. Having his team prepared against at the time was an absolute juggernaut in the NBA with the duo of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Look, I know this is about Damon Stoudamire and how they beat the Bulls, but they only won because Jordan got a jumper off too late that would have crushed the city if it counted. Damon gave his first 2.5 seasons of his career to the Toronto Raptors, who at the time were a very young team. And when I say young, I'm just speaking not based off the roster, but just their existence, a 4-year-old team. And even though they were a young team, they were making some of the best decisions in the draft that a team could make. During this time, they added players like Marcus Camby, who was a young elite defensive center, Tracy McGrady, a high school phenom who became one of the top 10 scorers in the history of the NBA, in my opinion. And the year after Damon left the team to go to the Portland Trailblazers, they would draft Vince Carter. The Raptors were actually making great decisions, unlike the Vancouver team, who struggled, not, I wouldn't say with making the wrong picks, but developing them. Statistically, his best season was his second one, where he averaged 20 points and 8 assists. But after becoming part of the Trailblazers, he will become within 1 game of punching a ticket and having a chance to advance to the NBA Finals. I respect numbers, and they don't lie, but sometimes the numbers that are equated with you doesn't equal your happiness. See, the roster that he played with the Toronto Raptors, they would have never had a chance of getting that close to the NBA Finals. And I see several interviews where Damon Stoudamire regrets going to Portland, but That's tough. That's why I paused. But you wouldn't have gotten that same chance with the Toronto Raptors. When Damon Stoudamire became a part of the Portland Trail Blazers team, he would be teamed up with an awesome team, in my opinion, having one of the most underrated power forwards of all time in Rasheed Wallace. These are some highlights where Rasheed was playing against Kevin Garnett and made it very difficult for him to score. Not to mention Arvydas Sabonis, who, in a lot of people's opinion, could have been what Jokic is today, along with six-time NBA champion Scottie Pippen and all-star Steve Smith, who was a sharpshooter. This team also had a very young prospect who would grow to become an NBA All-Star in his own right, with Jermaine O'Neal. That 2000 year, the Portland Trail Blazers were good enough to get to the playoffs. During this run, they would defeat Kevin Garnett and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Stockton and Malone, who were in the twilight of their career after only being 2 years removed from one of the most iconic plays in the history of the NBA, from the most iconic basketball player in the history of the NBA. Well, Michael Jordan would hit Brian Russell with his crossover step back in the NBA Finals to seal the deal. This will put the team that Damon Stoudamire was on, the Portland Trail Blazers, in the 2000 NBA Western Conference Finals. Unfortunately, they will go against arguably the greatest dynamic duo of all time with Kobe and Shaq. This will be as far as Damon will ever get to becoming an NBA champion. This, unfortunately, is where the 99-2000 Portland Trail Blazers will be forever tagged as one of the greatest teams to never win a championship. This was an all-time great lineup, oozing with talent. And despite the Lakers winning Game 1, the next 3 games will be won by the Trail Blazers. Damon would average around 7 points and 3 assists during this playoff series, and after being up 3-1 in the best-of-7 playoff series, it would almost be certain that the Blazers would make it to the NBA Finals. Dame will have a 22-point outing against the Lakers along with 6 assists, putting his stamp on the series, going against a great defensive team and a great defensive player in Kobe Bryant. This highlight, which is probably the most notable plays during Kobe and Shaq's career, the alley-oop that put the nail in the coffin of the Blazers after coming down from a 3-1 deficit, was a statement in the dynasty that was yet to come. Damon would spend around 7 years with his hometown Trail Blazer team. He would depart the Blazers and become a member of the Memphis Grizzlies, the expansion team that was the Vancouver Grizzlies, but by this time had made its way down to Memphis. He is more likely a coach on the court during his tenure in Memphis, tutoring young point guards Mike Conley and Kyle Lowry, who both have gone on to have very consistent and productive NBA seasons. He would end his career buried on the bench of the San Antonio Spurs in 2008. He would only play around 31 games and average less than 4 points per game. Dame would retire from the NBA as a player and would make the transition into becoming a coach. He served time on the staff of the Memphis Grizzlies, the University of Memphis Tigers, and the Boston Celtics, just to name a few, only to now be the head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And since Damon was a point guard, it was only natural for him to slide into a coaching role after his retirement. Though Damon Stoudamire never won an NBA championship, at just 5'10", pound for pound, he was one of the greatest NBA players of all times, having an outstanding rookie season with an expansion team to becoming within 1 game of reaching the NBA championship, and like I said, now has made the transition into becoming the head coach. Basketball is in Damon Stoudamire blood, aka Mighty Mouse. Thanks for tuning in. More videos on the way.